still very paranoid about the pandemic. As you can see, their officers are wearing masks in the video footage. And this is also why the woman who first came in contact with the child was afraid to get too close.
Are you familiar with the child? Have you seen him before?
I've never seen him.
Can you describe how, like, the child, like, his demeanor and stuff was? Like, was he scared?
No, he wasn't scared. He came right to me. He grabbed my hand.
To me, it's also a little bit frightening how the child easily went with a stranger. The police also got in contact with the realtor who gave them Marissa's number and then highlighted the dangers of the area.
Kind of scary. A little guy running around here, nobody's here. That's real scary. I think he just turned 4 because she said something about a birthday. I knew he was 3. Like I said, I don't know him that well yet. That ain't cool.
He's a kid. He's gonna do things like that. And unfortunately, especially like around here, like people should be driving cautiously, but you've seen it.
So he did cross the road too. Oh wow.
During the statement to the police, even Marissa's own mother is terrified at what she's hearing.
I can't believe it. I'm glad he's safe because it's so different here with animals and whatever else is out here, and that's why I was shocked when you guys were telling me why. I'm like, wait a minute, what? He was out by himself and she wasn't here. He's a good mom, she really is. This was a stupid decision she made, and I can't believe she even made a decision like that. He was on the road. He doesn't know this area.
This is what nightmares are made of. The situation could have ended very badly, and this family is very lucky that it didn't. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that this is recent police footage, and it tells a different story than how Marissa responded in 2021. I'm about to show you her original response video where she put it out calling everything complete lies.
Now, a message from our sponsor that I'm going to skip past.
Online, those random strangers. People started asking questions when her mugshot came out.
Why can't you fucking say the word mugshot?
Started asking questions when her mugshot came out, and
why can't you
the
say
video
mugshot?
Was deleted pretty much the same day it was posted.
Hi guys, I just wanted to come on here and say that I do see your comments, I do see your concerns. I'm not at all trying to avoid or hide the situation. For those of you who know how legal stuff works, legally I'm only allowed to say so much regarding it. And I know there's a lot of things being posted online that are very out of context and very much untrue, so please do not believe everything that you will read on the internet. I can't really say much more. I just want to say thank you so much for all of those who have supported me and everything like that, and thank you guys.
Not only did she call it lies, but she twisted the facts within her lie to make it seem like she could not legally speak about it. Then the police report not say the internet is lying. This is bone-chilling to think about as a mother. Another saying, ah yes, the out-of-context detailed police report. I would like to think that it's possible she was afraid that she was going to lose her child, and that's why she was lying to the internet. I mean, but her actions tell me something.
Maybe.
Gura's here. Gura will be our new Oshi. You don't need that other Oshi. You just need me. Goomba. Say it with me. Goomba. Goom.
Wait, who was live? Somebody was live. Oh, I think it was the...
Gura will be our new Oshi. You don't need that other Oshi.
Yeah.
Bring you one.
For my grandma.
Yeah, give it to her.
My big fat ass huge ass life.
Please buy tickets to that. Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Phoenix.
I'm gonna go take a dump. A big old
dump.
I'll be back.
Stompy.biz/tour.
Yeah.
Come out and see me. Thank you for that. Nick will be in Chicago. When? March? Nick's in Chicago at some point.
Yeah, March something.
We're also all 3 boys will be. This is a big one in DC. We're coming back to the Black Cat. We're doing 2 shows. A stand-up show and a live podcast. Come to both, come to one, whatever you want to do. ISIS, fucking chill out, bitch. You're going to fucking unplug the goddamn thing. You fucking dumbass dog. Sorry to speak to you that way, but you almost jeopardized our careers. Anyway, yeah. Come see all 3 boys March 30th at the DC, at the Black Cat DC. Go see Nick in Chicago.
Oh, yeah. Come to... Whiplash Friday, Instagram, Twitter, Books Let's Podcast, and then,
Yeah, check out Abby. She's funny as shit.
If this dog unplugs this fucking thing, I'm going to punch at him in the face.
It's not. We should end the episode in case she does. Fucking dumbass dog.
I hate Adam. All right. I'm eating pretzels on mic. I don't give a fuck.
What flavor? Pretzels. What flavor?
Splits.
I got something you can split.
Yeah?
My ass cheeks.
Damn.
You too, Adam. Psych.
Just my dick flying into your ass, piloted by Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum. It was just a second before it snaps shut. After I've given your ass the virus. I've uploaded the virus to your ass, and now my dick has to escape your ass cheeks.
Is that Independence Day?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Can we just see this woman's tits so we can close this episode?
We're watching the Sapruzzilianos.
Oh, come on, show us titties.
Yeah,
Oh, she's
loosening her robe.
Yeah.
It's the episode with the Ginge bitch who helps Christopher with his screenplay.
Yeah.
She's so fucking fine.
The
dude.
Ginge bitch.
She's not that fine.
Yes, she is.
Damn, she's really throwing him the pussy here.
She looks like young, what's her name? The other ginger bitch in Hollywood.
Why don't you tell us?
Julianne Moore. Yeah.
No, she's better looking than Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore's hot. Dude.
Can you imagine how good it would feel to just smash her fucking face in with your fist?
No.
While fucking her.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because she asked for it.
Nah.
No.
Nah, you just had a bad day at work. And that's your dumb Irish wife.
Damn, dude, it's in your DNA, huh? Nick, you're wearing the little Irish hat too.
Mm-hmm. Damn,
Scottish.
There's a trail of powdered sugar going from the recorder.
It's
across
not me.
The carpet to you.
It's not me. It's Adam,
It's me.
motherfucker.
Yeah, I was eating
Because
my
my mother, Venetia Halkias, was nice
of her.
enough
Oh, it
to
was
bring
the
the
sexy-
boys
Yeah.
Christmas cookies. Oh hell yeah! Here we go.
You see her pussy?
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
you don't. No, you
Yeah, you
don't.
do.
No, she's wearing panties.
She's wearing panties.
I don't know what's.
You
underneath.
told me I was seeing her pussy.
I've never
like
seen.
those kind of
You
pussies.
you told me I was seeing
I've
pussy.
never seen panties before.
You think that's what a woman's pussy looks like? Yeah, her pussy. You rub your dick on her cotton ass pussy. Oh, is this cock inside? Show us your tits.
Yeah,
there's
oh,
tit.
Damn, I gotta say,
You see it.
those are nice titties.
Those like
Yeah.
fake sex
She's
looks
hot.
in movies. The girls like making noise and shit, not just checking her phone.
Yeah,
you mean
I hate
fake?
that fake
Just
shit.
fake shit.
Where you can tell the moment the dick goes in and she's like
Yeah.
happy instead of confused as to
Right.
why it hasn't affected her at all. You know, like that kind of fake movie sex.
Bullshit, dude. I fucking hate that shit.
She's
I
not.
think most movies
In
are
real life, where she's playing Flappy Bird on her
she's asleep.
she's playing her DS Lite. She's in 3rd grade.
Yeah, I hate that fake movie
Just
sex, dude.
pause the show. I can't pay attention.
Yeah, it's over now. Let's
Yeah,
pause it. Now that we
I
saw
don't know how-
titties,
I
Oh,
don't know
there's
how
a
to
second
pause it.
sex scene. I think.
we'll
in this
fast
episode.
forward to it.
I don't know how to do anything.
Or maybe they were just.
I've never done
computer.
anything before.
Computer, turn off Nick's TV.
Siri, pause the show.
That's not how.
Oh,
it
I
works.
thought it worked, but Anthony was just pausing.
Oh,
Siri.
Anthony Jr.
Siri, turn the computer TV
Anthony, why is your father bringing gay sex to me in my nursing home?
Ma,
Ma, shut the fuck up and just appreciate the gay porn.
fucking bring you gay porn. You fucking repay me.
I'm just fucking bringing you gay porno, ma.
Damn, that's an ugly bitch. That
Olivia
old.
Soprano's hideous.
Was she sex? She probably wasn't even that hot back in the day, even.
She was
That
a piece
face
of
is
ass in the
long.
flashbacks where Johnny Soprano
No,
cuts
I mean-
that guy's fingers off. She's a fucking fine.
But I mean
ass
this
bitch.
actress.
Oh, Olivia.
Nancy Marchand.
Oh yeah,
You know her
she was
name?
hot.
Yeah.
Bitch. Nice, dude.
She was the only person that James Gandolfini liked. Well, I mean, I know that he disliked.
He
people,
probably
but
liked everyone.
She was like, he had no confidence. He had like an acting coach on set all the time,
Yeah.
and she was the only person that could make him feel good about himself.
Oh, really?
Now I say these things. I've heard them like fifth hand.
Yeah.
I have no fucking
That sounds
idea.
right.
And it's so funny because if he were alive, I mean, even this I don't know, but like you hear one thing about somebody that happened one time, they're like, every day he would eat a Hershey's Kiss in memory of his brother who was killed in that Toys R Us fire.
Right.
It's like that,
The man just
that-
had a Hershey Kiss. He doesn't even
Yeah.
remember.
Right, yeah. And he would he would look towards the sky and he would say, "This is for you, Joshua. Hopefully you're not gay in heaven." And he would say that every day.
Really?
Before
Wow.
he would make everybody hold hands and sing the theme song to Doogie Howser. Just hum them. 'Cause there's no lyrics to it, unless you work in Hollywood, and then you know the secret lyrics of Doogie Howser. Which I
is
can't.
that part of getting to SAG?
Well, WJ, yeah.
WJ, yeah.
I mean, as a guild member myself.
So you know the lyrics.
I know the lyrics.
I don't even remember
Can you
the
tell me?
song.
Well, I'm sworn
Please?
to secrecy. Okay.
Dude.
Just tell us. Don't tell anyone else. We're not going to tell
He's going to tell me. He's not going to tell you, Adam.
All right, I'll close my ears.
It's the Doogie Howser Show. He's a doctor, but he's also a boy. And you thought he couldn't do medicine? Well, you're wrong. It's the Doogie Howser Show.
The actor turns out to be gay.
Yeah.
Later
Anybody
in his
with
life,
3
he's
names,
gay.
either homosexual or they kill the president.
Yep.
That's right.
Those are the only 2 ways you can go.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones.
Such a
Yeah,
fucking
Philip
bad
Seymour
shit.
Hoffman.
Such a
Michael
horrible
Ian
shit,
Black.
honestly.
Oh, Michael Ian Black is
Michael
gay.
Ian Black's gonna kill Trump.
Ooh, that'll show us.
Yeah.
He's gonna
for
kill
calling
Bernie.
him gay.
That's
for
the
his
moment we've been
replies.
waiting for a man that's been barely funny for 30 years.
Being carried his whole career.
Yeah, a man who's never done anything that is even registered as funny to me.
He was on a lot of those VH1 talking heads.
I know.
Yeah, those were the best. Adam.
Yeah, those were
really
so
funny.
fucking funny. When
Stella
they,
was funny.
They'd be
Those
like,
were so fucking funny. Oh no, they did it. Schrodinger's equation for the cat in the box? Oh, Panty and Stocking was good. Oh, man. That honestly was a really good poop. Damn. Oh my god, I wish. I wish. That was actually very slick. much.
I told you that story to tell you this one.
Love sick like a dog with canine sensitivity. Developing this new theory
Oh,
around
yeah, I
the
probably
activity.
need to do
Connecting
this.
the souls
Damn.
resting in captivity.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. It's just really loud for some reason. I don't know why. Oh. Oh my god, why is this update so fucking big? Fuck that. Like, actually, fuck that. What is this? My life is boring. Oh, nice! Isabella! I love that. I love that doggo. Quality content like this in my fucking recommend. No clickbait, respect. Good video. Elliott Smith's noise music. Dude, I wish I still had a Game Boy SP. Just the two of us. We can make it, you and I. Just the two of us, you and I. Yeah, I was about to say, that's fucking... Looks like Post Malone. Looks like Post Malone showing Japan's dark side, covered up for months. It might actually... Okay, it's pretty much done. $3 idol. Just the two of us. I fucking can't. I don't know. Budanda. Musica. Burande. We are cats.
That's okay. It's alright.
Never known someone like you, tangled in love, stuck by you from the glue. Don't forget to kiss me, or else you'll have to miss me. I guess I'm stuck forever by the glue. Oh, and you.
That song kind of sucks. Good fucker. Evangelion is best waifu. I made it in abyss. Nanachi something. Nanachi something. Something about Nanachi. Nah. Oh. Nah, it's the noise that she makes. Dude, I don't want to fucking play this bullshit, by the way. I really don't feel like doing anything like online. I'm pretty fucking tired. I need to stay up though. Free with ads. Oh yeah, I don't get. Babytron. That's so funny. That's so funny. I listened to this whole thing apparently.
When the world is on your shoulder, get it straight and up you act and boogie down. If they connect with the feeling, didn't rain on love for you, this spell of down. 'Cause we're the
Oh my god, that's terrible.
Sleep and study. Don't forget to subscribe.
We're going to move now into actually solving the Schrödinger equation. This is really the main meat of quantum mechanics. And in order to start tackling the Schrödinger equation, we need to know a little bit about how equations like the Schrödinger equation are solved in general. One of those solution techniques is separation of variables, and that's the solution technique that we're going to be applying repeatedly to the Schrödinger equation. First of all, though, let's talk a little bit about ordinary and partial differential equations. The Schrödinger equation is a partial differential equation, which means it's a good deal more difficult than an ordinary differential equation. But what does that actually mean? First of all, let's talk about ordinary differential equations.
ODEs.
What an ordinary differential equation tells you is how specific coordinates change with time. At least that's most applications. So you have something like x as a function of time, y as a function of time, sorry, not y as a function of x, y as a function of time, z as a function of time. For example, the position of a projectile moving through the air.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Could be determined by three functions, x, y, and z.
Yep.
If you're only working in 2 dimensions, for instance, let me drop the z.
Yeah.
But we might have a velocity as well, say vx of t and vy of t. These 4 coordinates, position in 2 dimensions and velocity in 2 dimensions, fully specifies the state of a projectile moving in 2 dimensions.
Yep.
What an ordinary differential equation might look like to govern the motion of this projectile would be something like the following. dx dt is vx, dy dt is vy. Nothing terribly shocking there. The position coordinates change at a rate of change given by the velocity. While the velocities change, dvx dt is given by, let's say, minus k vx, and dvy dt is minus kv subscript y now, kvy minus g.
Why is the... Oh, yeah, yeah.
This tells you that...
That's gravity.
Well, where I got these equations, this is effectively damped frictional motion in the plane xy, where gravity is pulling you down.
Right.
So in the absence of any velocity, gravity leads to an acceleration in the negative y direction, and the rest of this system evolves accordingly. What that tells you, though, in the end, is the trajectory of the particle. If you launch it as a function of time, tick, 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 as a projectile moves through the air in, say, x, y space. Partial differential equations, on the other hand, PDEs, you have several independent variables.
But they all
so where
correlate.
an ordinary differential equation we only had time, and everything was a function of time, in a partial differential equation, what you're trying to solve for will have several independent variables. For example, the electric field, the vector electric field in particular, as a function of x, y, and z. The electric field has a value, both a magnitude and a direction, at every point in space, so x, y, and z potentially vary over the entire universe. Now you know how, excuse me, you know a few equations that pertain to the electric field that maybe you could use to solve to determine what the electric field is. One of these is Gauss's law, which we usually give an integral form. The integral of the electric field dotted with an area vector over a closed surface is equal to the charge enclosed by that surface over epsilon naught. Now hopefully you also know there is a differential form for Gauss's law, and it usually is written like this. This upside down delta is read as del, so you could say this is del dot E, and this is a vector differential operator. I'm going to skip the details of this because this is all electromagnetism, and if you go on to take advanced electromagnetism courses, you will learn about this in excruciating detail. Perhaps suffice to say here that most of the time when we're trying to solve equations like this, we don't work with the electric field, we work with the potential, let's call that V, and this system of equations here, if you treat the electric field as minus the gradient of the potential, gives you this equation gives you the Laplace equation. Del squared V equals rho over epsilon naught. What that actually writes out to, if you go through all of the vector algebra, is the second derivative of V with respect to x plus the second derivative of V with respect to y plus the second derivative of V with respect to z, and I've left off all my squareds in the denominator here, is equal to rho over epsilon naught. This is a partial differential equation, and if we had some machinery for solving partial differential equations, we would be able to determine the potential at every point in space. And that would then allow us to determine the electric field at every point in space. This is just an example. Hopefully you're familiar with some of the terms I'm using here.
Nope. I'm lost.
The main solution technique that is used for partial differential equations is separation of variables.
Okay.
And separation of variables is fundamentally a guess.
Okay.
Suppose we want to find some function. In the case of electromagnetism, it's the potential x, y, and z. The potential is a function of x, y, and z.
Right.
Let's make a guess that v of x, y, and z can be written as x of x times y of y times z of z. So instead of having one function of 3 variables, we have the product of 3 functions of 1 variable each. Does this guess work? Well, it's astonishing how often this guess actually does work. This is a very restrictive sort of thing, but under many realistic circumstances, this actually tells you a lot about the solution. For example, the wave equation. The wave equation is what you get mathematically if you think about, say, having a string stretched between 2 solid objects. Now, under those circumstances, if you zoom in on, if you say, pluck the string, you know it's going to vibrate up and down. Mathematically speaking, if you zoom in on a portion of that string, say it looks like this, you know the center of this string is going to be accelerating downwards. And the reason it's going to accelerate downwards is because there is tension in the string, and the tension force pulls that direction on that side and that direction on that side. So it's being pulled to the right and pulled to the left, and the net force then ends up being in the downward direction. If the string curved the other direction, you would have effectively a net force pulling up and to the right, and a net force pulling up into, or a force pulling up into the right, a force pulling up into the left, and your net force would be up. This tells you about forces in terms of curvatures, and that thought leads directly to the wave equation. The acceleration, as a result of the force, is related to the curvature of the string. And how we express that mathematically is with derivatives. The acceleration is the second derivative of the position. So if we have the position of this string is u as a function of position and time, then the acceleration of the string at a given point and at a given time is going to be equal to some constant, traditionally written c squared, times the curvature, which is the second derivative of u with respect to x. Again, u being a function of position and time. So this is the wave equation. I should probably put a box around this, because the wave equation shows up a lot in physics. This is an important one to know. But let's proceed with separation of variables.
Specifically, quantum physics
as a function
has a lot of
of
like wave
position and time is going to be x, a function of not time, x a function of position, and t a function of time. So capital X and capital T are functions of a single variable each, and their product is what we're guessing will reproduce the behavior of u. So if I substitute this u into this equation, what I end up with is the second derivative of x, t of t, with respect to time, equals c squared times the second derivative of x, t of t.
Where the fuck did you get? Oh, I see.
To position. So this hasn't really gotten us anywhere yet, but what you notice here is we have derivatives with respect to time, and then we have this function of position. Since these are partial derivatives, they're derivatives taken with everything else other than the variable that you're concerned with held constant, which means this part here, which is only a function of position, can be treated as a constant and taken outside of the derivative. The same sort of thing happens here. We have second derivatives, partial second derivatives with respect to position, and here we have only a function of time, effectively a constant for this partial derivative, which means we can pull things out. And what we've got then is capital X. I'm going to drop the parentheses x, because you know capital X is a function of lowercase x.
Right.
So you've got big X, second partial derivative with respect to time of big T, equals c squared, big T, second partial derivative of big X with respect to x.
Okay.
That's nice, because you can see we're starting to actually be able to pull x and t out here. The next step is to divide both sides of this equation by xt, by basically dividing through by u. In order for this to work, we need to know that our solution is non-trivial, meaning if x and t are everywhere 0, dividing through by this will do bad things to this equation.
Sorry.
But what you're left with after you divide by this is 1 over t, second partial of t, big T with respect to little t, and c squared 1 over big X, second partial of big X with respect to little x. This is fully separated. What that means is that the left-hand side here is a function only of t. And the right-hand side is a function only of x. That's very interesting. Suppose I write this function of t as, say, f of t. This then, this part, let's call that g of x. I have two different functions of t and x. Normally you would say, oh, I have f of t and I have g of x, and I know what those forms are. I could, in principle, solve for t as a function of x. But that isn't what you're going to do, and the reason that's not the case is that this is a partial differential equation. Both x and t are independent variables. All of this analysis, in order for separation of variables to work, must hold at every point in space, at every x and at every time.
Oh.
So suppose this relationship held for a certain value of t and for a certain value of x. I ought to be able to change x and have the relationship still hold. So if I change x without changing t, the left-hand side of the equation isn't changing. If changing x led to a change in g of x, then my relationship wouldn't hold anymore. So effectively what this means is that g of x is a constant. In order for this relationship to hold, both f of t and g of x have to be constant. Essentially, what this is saying in the context of the partial differential equation is that if we look at the x part here, when I change the position, any change in the second derivative of the position function is mimicked by this 1 over x, such that the overall function ends up being a constant. That's nice, because that means I actually have two separate equations. F of t is a constant and g of x is a constant.
Oh my god, I'm so tired.
What these equations actually look like,
I think it's just also this video is
f of t, and this is my g of x.
This is also just really hard to stay awake to. The pedophile I've never heard of. That's probably good. I don't really want to hear about any specific pedophiliacs. Vashti Bunyan.
I turn away the sad impossibility of your smile.
Kid tape.
I'd sit there in the sun of the things I like about you.
How to win friends thoughts and influence people make use intrusive thoughts. So that was a dude. ABC bass with an Emacs enthusiast in 2023.
I'd like to present to you my newly made Absolute Guide to Emacs video. It's around 1.5 years long. I can send it to you via FTP. So, Emacs, huh? Sure, let me just put on the fireplace. So yeah, Emacs. If you make a change to your text and decide that it was a mistake, Emacs got you covered.
Yeah, all text editors do that.
My friend, let me tell you, but Emacs is not a text editor. Emacs is not that hard. You can learn Emacs in one day, every day. How do I write my blog posts? Emacs. How do I do my project management? Emacs. DNA sequencing? Emacs. Pearl monks? Emacs. Taxes? Emacs. Amacs? Emacs.
Really? The RS has an Emacs package?
No. I have to mail the text form. But how do I do my mails? Emacs. The normal way to do it in Emacs? There's no normal way to do it in Emacs. Emacs is fully customizable. Emacs is a fully hackable system. But you know why Emacs is different from other editors, right? Well, Emacs runs in an interpreter. With Jupyter, you're modifying the state of the program. With Emacs, you're modifying the state of the art. The state of the editor. Emacs will never die.
The state of the art. Train your brain to think like a genius.
How do you train your brain to
insane.
think like a genius?
You're insane.
That's right. You can change the way you think by following these principles and become extremely good at anything. In this video, we're going to use math as the example because these are things that I have used to get better at math. These are things that other people have done to get better at math. And
is there any way that you can use it to get better at brushing your fucking hair, dog?
To think like a genius. The beautiful thing is you can apply this to physics, you can apply it to biology,
5 minutes
you can apply
a day,
it to chemistry, you can probably apply it to any field. Another really good thing about these tips is that you don't have to follow them in order. These aren't things that you have to do in order. You don't have to do step 1.
Oh, that was a joke, like a joke video, honestly. We got mom jeans. Like a man burning alive. Oh, girl with dogs.
One of the world's most recognizable dogs. This large corded dog that resembles your floor mop is a powerful Hungarian breed, weighing over 100 pounds.
Wow.
They are muscular, intelligent, and stellar at their job. This is Max, and he's a 2-year-old Commodore. Before we get started,
I like his little bun on top.
That if you are a regular viewer of my channel and you haven't hit that subscribe or follow button yet, well, that's just rude. Okay, buddy, are you ready for your hour-long bath?
Yeah. How do you bathe that thing? It's got dreads everywhere.
Let's get you clean. You're a dirty man. Why are you laying down? Don't lay down. This is Max's first experience at a groomer. Despite the owner's best efforts, He was unable to find anyone willing to take on a corded dog.
Yeah.
These dogs are an extreme amount of work, and their coat requires a lot of time and patience. His owner has done a remarkable job maintaining his cords. And get this is his first ever dog.
Yay. Poor guy can't see nothing. He's got such long little dreads.
It's important that a corded dog is bathed in diluted shampoo. Their cords act like a sponge and absorb the suds, which means it requires a lot of rinsing. Using straight shampoo would make it very difficult to rinse the soap out, and we don't want to leave any residue behind because that can cause the dog to become itchy and irritated. I'm just going to squeeze this shampoo in here. They're very dirty under there. After the dog has been soaped up, you want to use your hands to squeeze the shampoo into the cords. Your feet are filthy, bro. So I'm going to rinse for the next 500 years. And then I'm going to add purple shampoo. Some groomers don't use a purple shampoo on corded coats. If the shampoo isn't properly rinsed, it can leave the coat with a gray tinge. In this case, Max is very stained, so I'm using a diluted purple shampoo in an attempt to remove some of the staining. This just means I need to do a lot more rinsing. A better way to lessen the staining would be to soak a corded dog in soapy bathwater. Unfortunately, this isn't possible for me because my tub does not allow me to fill it with water. Very diluted tears.
Your tub doesn't let you. I control my tub. I don't know about you.
Once I am finally done washing Max, I rinse for the next 100 years. I use both my nozzle and my hose without a nozzle to create a thicker stream of water. As I rinse him down, I squeeze the cords. You know you're done rinsing when you squeeze the cords and you no longer see suds.
Poor guy. He's like, dude, we've been in here for over an hour.
After he gives me a shower, I use my absorber towel to squeeze the water out of his cords. I do this until he is no longer dripping wet, and then it's off to the blow dryer. Ideally, it would be best to dry a corded dog in a crate with a dryer and a fan facing them. Max here is not crate trained, and he turned into a 120-pound solid boulder when I tried to get him in one. So he will be dried with the high-velocity dryer. Drying him with the HV dryer can cause a little bit of frizzing, but if we left him to air dry, we run the risk of him smelling foul, like mildew, and causing mold to grow.
Yeah.
So I will dry him with the HV dryer until he is about 80% dry. Using a towel underneath him and one under his cords, I run the HV dryer along his cords and the water comes spraying out.
My God, that would take so long.
It's important to note that corded dogs are not your average matted dogs. Instead, their coat is a system of organized mats.
What?
The difference is that a matted dog has tight, thick matting on the skin, preventing the skin from breathing and causing constriction, which is inevitably painful and can lead to other health problems.
Look at his little breathing. His
Cords
breaths.
are not matted to the skin. They move freely. You can not only see Max's skin clearly, but you can also see how it's not irritated. The cords don't hurt them, and they are light to the touch. Despite how it may seem, they do not cause the dog to be weighed down.
That is fucking
Corded
crazy.
dogs are not neglected dogs. On the contrary, they are extremely well cared for and pampered dogs.
Yeah, they have to be pretty high maintenance, honestly. The dude seems pretty chill, though.
I bet you didn't know that the Commodore, you guessed it, is a livestock guardian dog. Apparently, livestock guardians are my new specialty. Their corded coat was not designed for fashion, but it was actually designed to help them do their job more effectively. The cords prevent predators from being able to sink their teeth into the dog's skin. And it
I like
also
his little
helps
top
disguise
bun.
them
It's
in a
so
crowd of sheep,
cute.
which takes the fierce predators by surprise. In addition to that, like all double-coated dogs, Their coat protects them from all weather conditions, keeping them cool in the summer and warm in the winter. Once the coat is finally dry, we start the most tedious part of all. First, I spray him down in an anti-static spray. In order to prevent Max's coat from matting, I have to go through his cords one by one, and whenever I see them clumped together, I pull them apart and down to the skin. This does not hurt the dog. An owner of a Commodore would have to do this weekly, if not daily, to prevent large clumpy mats from forming. This keeps the cords and
She
the
has
skin
some really
healthy.
nice nails, though.
Next, Max has what's called bells at the end of his cords. This is caused by puppy fur that was not corded, and eventually it mats up, causing a bell. To fix this, I will trim each side of the bell to make it even with the cord. They can also be trimmed off, but that would lose a lot of length. If the owner does decide to trim them off, they would need to be cut at an angle or rounded. Cords should never be cut blunt. Another option would be to brush each one out. The puppy fur would likely break off. Since Max has already been here for 5 hours, I won't be able to fix every cord today. But the owner can work on them slowly until he achieves the look that he desires.
Oh my god, that would be so arduous. No, thank you. I don't think I would be able to do all that. No, I can see the bells that she's talking about, though. Yeah, there's a decent amount of them that are pretty wide.
Being livestock guardians, they are highly skeptical of strangers and often aggressive when on their own territory. It takes a special owner to provide essential socialization and training in order to trust their Commodore with outsiders. Max is not only phenomenal with me and the cameraman, but this was his first time alone with strangers.
Aww.
Once again, a round of applause for Max's owner. I sprayed him down in Spring Rain cologne, and
Look
after
at that
6
handsome
hours,
boy.
this dog was finally finished. He didn't need a nail trim or a paw pad shave because his
Oof,
owner
he
already
was pretty
manages
stained.
that. His before and after really shows you how dirty he was.
Yeah.
If you liked this video,
Oh, look
please
at
don't
him.
forget to hit that subscribe or follow button.
It's
Thank you
beautiful
all
fur.
so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the magical Max.
He is very magical. Good for him. Has 2 brain cells.
I'm going to go and get you some pilchards. How's about that? Do you want pilchards? Kylie? Pilchards? Yeah, okay. Is that a yes? Okay.
Aww.
Look at those claws. Yo. No. Kylie. Special animal this. Cole's now giving us a display of his cuteness. Good morning. Today we are going to be doing a new installment of the Meet the Character series, and I think you can guess what animals I'm going to be covering. Yes, it's the black leopards, and this is really because
Those are not panthers, huh?
in the last episode of Meet the Characters, we asked you guys to comment.
Oh my god, I don't know how advanced algorithms. Human behavioral biology.
Stanford University.
I gotta go put some towels in the dryer. I'll be back.
This is Bio 150, isn't it? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so we start off with a scenario. 40-year-old guy, quiet suburban life, married, 15-year, 2 kids, 3.5 dogs, everything's standard, everything's going wonderfully. And one day, out of nowhere, he punches somebody in the face at work. Totally bizarre, out of character. The guy is standing there by the water cooler and makes some comment on some baseball team, takes exception to it, punches him in the face. Utterly strange. Things are quiet. 3 months later, his wife of 15 years happy marriage discovers he's having an affair with a 16-year-old checkout kid down at the Safeway. Really weird. Then 3 months after that, he absconds with all the money at work, embezzles it, disappears, and is never seen again. 3 possibilities. First one, this guy is a truly deep creep. Second, he is having the most immature midlife crisis you could ever imagine. Third possibility, he has a mutation in one gene in his head. And what we'll be seeing is this is exactly the profile that you get in a certain neurological disease where it's one gene that's out of whack. First demonstration of that. Okay, just to get a sense of who's here, how many of you think there is a genetic influence on sexual orientation? Okay, how many think it is possible for prenatal events to influence your political opinions 30 years later? Okay, how many think that there is a valid way of using biology to understand who's religious and who isn't? Yeah, not quite as many hands there. Okay, as long as we're in that terrain. How many people believe in God? How many people believe in souls? How many people believe in evil? How many people believe in free will? That's going to change. Okay. Oh, I might as well ask, is there anybody in this room who actually does believe in evolution? Just wanted to make sure, see what we're dealing with here. Okay, how many think that there is a genetic influence and that there's a basic biological difference, a sex difference in levels of aggression? How many think there's biological bases of sex differences in intelligence? Okay, who thinks it's all explained by nature?
Yes.
Who thinks it's all explained by nurture? Who think there's a magnificent, fascinating, nuanced interaction between nature and nurture? Yay, okay, well, everybody's going to get an A+ then. You already have the course under control. Okay, so we start off trying to find something in common. Look at these 4 events here. Or not, in terms of being scraped out there, but these are 4 circumstances that have something surprising in common. Having your period, having a brain tumor, eating a lot of junk food, taking anabolic steroids. Those of you who are not oriented to it, that's the ones that build up your muscle, like testosterone derivatives. Okay, these all have something in common. Having your period, having a brain tumor, eating a lot of junk food, and taking a lot of anabolic steroids. Anybody want to fathom a guess what's the commonality amongst the 4 of them?
They're all behavioral.
Hormones, good. Okay, we're often running with hormones. Good. Even more specific than that. Something they all have in common.
Their behavior?
Come on,
no. I have no idea.
I see these brief movements of hands there as people change their mind. Okay, it all has to do with hormones. They all have hormones in common, I say, trying to facilitate somebody making the next guess. Oh, come on, they all have something. Okay, we got to get out of here at some point. These all have 4 things in common. All of these have been used successfully in courts of law to explain the behavior of a murderer.
Oh, that's cool.
In the first case.
Wow.
In the first case. A number of cases where the fact that a woman was having her period at the time of killing someone was part of what a jury said led them to exonerate the person.
Wow.
And literature showing that a disproportionate share of female aggression comes around the time of menses. Next one. There is an area of the brain you will know oh so much about over the next 3 months called the amygdala that has something to do with aggression and has something to do with fear. And you get a brain tumor there, and in a number of cases, you get someone who is uncontrollably violent. And this has also been used successfully in a court of law. Junk food. Any of you who are San Francisco history buffs will know 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Dan White, a disappointed office seeker, assassinated the mayor of San Francisco along with Harvey Milk. And as part of his remarkably successful defense for a double murderer that led to a remarkably short jail sentence was the famed Twinkie defense. The argument that his addiction to junk food caused wild fluctuations in his blood sugar levels, which caused him to do that. Finally, anabolic steroids, any number of cases of people having uncontrolled violence arguing because they were weightlifters in a wildly abusive range of taking this stuff had something to do with violence. Put all four of these together and we get the first of the 2 points of this entire course, which is sometimes the stuff that's going on in your body can dramatically influence what goes on in your brain. Second critical point. Tonight, when you've settled back down and you're ready to go to sleep and you're nice and relaxed and your heart's beating nice and slow, think the following thought. You know, that heart isn't going to beat forever.
Oh no.
Think about
tell me
your
that.
lips turning blue after that. Think about the blood flow slowing down. Think about your feet and your toes getting cold. And at that point, you will probably be increasing the rate at which that heart beats. And you will have just seen the second key thing in this course, which is sometimes what's going on in your head will affect every single outpost in your body. And what this course is about is the intertwining, the interconnections between your physiology and your behavior, the underlying emotions, thoughts, memories, all of that.
Very interesting.
And the capacity of each to deeply influence the other under all sorts of circumstances. Now, what we're going to be doing with this is trying to understand this under fairly difficult circumstances. If everybody here was here because they really wanted to understand why all the wildebeest on Earth mate in the same week each year, we'd have a fighting chance of figuring that one out. But that's not what we want to understand. We don't want to understand why birds migrate and don't get lost. We want to understand human behavior. Worse than that, harder than that, human social behavior. And hardest of all, in some cases, some grossly abnormal human behavior. And if you're going to try to do that, there's a problem, which is officially, it's complicated. It is a huge, messy process trying to make sense of the biology of human social behavior. And just as all sorts of realms, when one deals with messy, complicated problems that you need to think about in some wildly interacting way, we all have a strategy that we come up with. A strategy to make things easier, which is that we think in categories. We think in categories, we take things that are continua and we break them into categories, and we label those categories. And we do that in various settings because it could be extremely useful.
Ooh, can't wait to check out the lesson on schizophrenia.
Somebody give me an estimate on how long this line is.
6 inches.
A foot. Okay, people who said a foot, what is it that went through your head to figure it out? You imagined how long a ruler is. This is 11.5 inches because it's 11 inches and 8.5 by 11. But everybody in here has this category in their head, things that are kind of the same length as a ruler. A continua of lengths, and there's a category for that. Suppose I'm telling you I have some friend who's a runner, he runs the mile, he's incredibly fast. In fact, he's one of the best runners in the country at this point. How fast does he have to have run the mile or better for you to be deeply impressed? Under 4 minutes, and thus we have another categorical boundary there of there's an infinite variety of speeds with which you can run a mile, yet we have in our heads this boundary, people who are under 4-minute milers, you are very impressed with. Okay, now I want to impress you with another friend of mine who's a painter, and this person is such a great painter that they paint with 11 different colors. That doesn't work because that's not a category that we have. We don't classify the quality of, or hopefully not, we don't classify quality of paintings along those lines. But what we begin to see here is in the right areas, we have categories that we impose on things that are not categorical. Here's an example. Why should you do this? Where'd the example go? Here's one of the classic continua that we ever deal with, which is the continua of color, the varying wavelengths that take the rainbow from violet to red, and there's an infinite number of spaces in between. And what do? We have rules in English that you divide the continua here and here or whatever, and that's what you call
like
a color.
maroon.
This is red, everything from here is red, everything here is orange, so on. You take a continua and you break it into boundaries. Why do we do that? Because it makes it easier to store the information away. Instead of remembering the absolute features of something, you simply say, it's a sub 4 minute miler. It's a line that's almost the length, that's about the length of a ruler. It's the color orange. How do you know that's the case? Because go and take people from other language groups where their language arbitrarily divides the rainbow at other points with completely different color terms, and they remember different profiles of colors differently than an English speaker might. Take a color, and if the color comes right in the center of somebody's color categorization, it comes right in the middle of the range of what counts as that color, people remember whether they saw that color or not far better than if you show them a color at the boundary. And people will show that as a function of what language they speak. Taking a continua and you break it into pieces because it's easier to deal with the facts. Another example of it, here we have 4 objects, and as drawn here, simply because we have categories to describe the first 3, do one of those tests of show people a bunch of shapes and they come back an hour later and ask them, have you seen the shape before? And people are going to be far more accurate with this than whether they saw this or not, because we don't have a word for it. We don't have a word that's at all sort of analytical, it's some squiggly whatever. We don't have a clear-cut category. Thinking in categories makes it easier for us to remember stuff. And it makes it easier for us to evaluate stuff. So that's a classic sort of response that we have cognitively to complicated things. But there's a bunch of problems with categorical thinking. First example, and first one you can see from a realm of language differences, in that not only is there a continua of infinite number of wavelengths, there's a continua of sounds that humans can make. And different languages draw boundaries at different points as to what count as similar sounds or different sounds. There's like 2 different TH sounds in English, which apparently we're not very good at hearing, but there's other ones we are. And that will affect your ability to remember stuff, what word it was, depending on whether it is on a dramatically different boundary, whether it is sound that sounds different to you or not. Example of this. Apparently, in Finnish, people do not differentiate between the sound of a B and the sound of a P. Whereas we have no trouble with that. But people from Finland do not make that differentiation. And I discovered this one day a number of years ago, where for reasons I don't even understand, I found myself needing to take testicular biopsies on baboons. Not having sort of learned that in junior high how you do that, I called up this guy at urology at the med school who happened to be Finnish, and I explained to him what I wanted to do, and he sort of took me through the paces and told me what thingy I needed to buy and that sort of stuff, and holiday packages of those where you can get a dozen, and sort of telling me how to do that. And once we went through, he said, what I want you to do, the thing to do at this point is get some practice. I want you to practice on a bear. I said, what? He said, yeah, practice on a bear. And I said, are you kidding me? He said, I know it sounds crazy, but we have all the residents do that. It's a very good learning device. You know, either practice on a bear or an apple. Here we see the dangers of making mistakes about differences between B and P under certain circumstances. So we see one of the dangers there, which is when you are paying too much attention to categories, you can't differentiate 2 facts that fall within the same category. Next example. Remember back at various points of anxiety during exams and such back when, where there was a world of difference between getting a 65 on a test and a 66 on a test. Not particularly different, but because there's this boundary drawn there between passing and failing, there is this dramatic differentiating we make. When you put up boundaries, you have trouble seeing how similar things are on either side of it. Next example, one additional problem that you get when you think categorically. And for this, everybody needs to turn over one of the pieces of paper, the paper you're going to hand in, the questionnaire. And what I'm going to do is read you a series of phone numbers, and I want you to write them down as accurately as possible. Okay, ready? 243-2649, 650-3260, 2565779, 832-2449, 2-913-171, 2314-026, 593-2449, 74-38840, 83152-87. Okay, now what that exercise is, and no, that doesn't count towards the grade. What that will show, I'm sure, when in some obsessive burst of procrastination I actually look through the answers tonight, what it's going to show is the accuracy is going to tank the second you go from the phone number pattern of 3 digits followed by 4, break up that pattern, and suddenly we all get screwed up because we're saying, wait a second, I thought it was a phone number, that was 1 digit, now 2 digits, I can't, and it's gone, and you're on to the next one. And what we see there is the third example,
Bubba,
which is when you pay too much attention to boundaries, you don't see the big picture. All you see are categories. All you see are, wait a second, phone numbers are supposed to come with 3 digits followed by 4. Another example of where we use categorical thinking. Okay, I'm putting up a number series here.
Huh, I wonder if I have ice too.
Oh my God. Okay, what's the next number in this series? And why?
Hang on, I know this. I can see 4, 1, 4, 2, 3, 3, 4. Oh shit! Hang on a second. 4. Then you add 1, 4. Then you do 2, 3. Then you do 3, 4. There is it 11? No, that's 9. 14 to 23 is 9. 10 plus 4 is 14 plus 9 is 23 plus 11 is 34. I'm gonna say 41? 41.
42. Fuck. How come? Okay, so we're kind of oscillating all over the place there.
Yeah, it's just random.
Okay, so that's as valid as anybody
10
else's. Who
plus
else had
9
the
plus
number
11, then
there?
it would be plus 12. Yeah.
What's that? 45. How come?
There's probably no right
Are you
answer.
going to take that? 45. That's very okay. What else? Let me make it a little bit easier here. Okay, so what's the next number in that series? And what I'm telling you is if you think about the world with a certain set of categories in your head, you will know the next number in the sequence. So what's the next one? 7 billion. Okay, that one. Okay, 7 billion, that's another possibility. Although presumably it would be 7 billionth. Anything else? Any other guesses here as to what happens next? 4th, 14th, 23rd, 34th. What's the next one in the sequence? Yes? 44. How come?
Well, it's looking like you're just kind of going up like plus 10 in the tens column, but then when you're doing 2 fourths, or
I don't fucking know.
Okay, but remember, it's got to be 44th. What's that? Ordinal, cardinal, whatever it is. What?
42nd.
How come? You were right. You were right.
Subway.
Anybody who is a New Yorker will know what the next one is. These are the subway stops. And you get a bagel with cream cheese. Can you just head it on back? Yay. So you get New Yorkers, and while everybody else is thinking logical things like 43 and 41
I think I
and
said
45
41,
and
yeah, I
7
said 41.
billion and all of that, you've got this whole world of dividing numbers by subway stops. We think in categories. We think in categories, but as you just saw, there are these problems. First one being, when you think in categories, you underestimate how different two facts are when they fall in the same category. When you think in categories, you overestimate how different they are when there happens to be a boundary in between them. And when you pay attention to categorical boundaries, you don't see big pictures. Now, what our goal in this class is going to be is think about this big, complex issue of the biology of behavior without falling into thinking in categories. What do I mean in this regard, thinking categorically about a subject like this? There's some chicken, and the chicken is standing somewhere, and there's some rooster over there that does some sexually solicitive, exciting thing for the female, and in response to that, the female picks up and goes running over to the rooster, and thus we have our first behavioral biology question here: why did that chicken cross the road to get to that rooster? So you could answer that like an endocrinologist and say, well, the female had certain levels of estrogen in her bloodstream, which made this key hypothalamic areas responsive to the stimulus. Or you could answer it like an anatomist of saying, well, because the fulcrum of her pelvis or whatever it is chickens have that allow them to run. Or you could answer it in the category of an evolutionary biologist that over the millennia, chickens that didn't respond to sexually solicitive gestures from males left fewer copies of their genes, and there's all these different categories that we can use to explain what's going on. All of these different buckets which begin to pull you towards all of the problems we just saw. Having trouble telling how different or similar two facts are, having trouble seeing big pictures, overemphasizing the importance of the bucket you happen to live inside of. And thus, suddenly, everything about this behavior is explained by a gene, a neurotransmitter, a childhood trauma, a living inside one bucket. What we are going to be doing over and over, and here is the main point of the course, is looking at how what goes on in your body influences behavior, emotions, memories, how what goes on there influences your body, looping over, and at every one of those points, resisting the pull to think categorically.
I'm going to see if I can pop out my chat. Oh, we learned. Oh, dude, Brock's in here? What's up, dude? I did not know. I was actually going to see if I could do this. No, go back to my channel. I don't think it's working. It's so fucking annoying.
Childhood trauma, a living inside one bucket. What we are going to be doing
Jeannie's
over and
ass.
over, and here is the main point of the course, is looking at how what goes on in your body influences behavior, emotions, memories, how what goes on there influences your body, looping over, and at every one of those points, resisting the pull to think categorically. Oh, this is the explanation for where this behavior came from. Here's what we're going to be doing instead throughout.
Yeah, this is a lot easier to understand
when we get to actual behaviors.
For me, at least.
For each behavioral category, we will start off by looking at what the behavior looks like, because often that takes a lot more objectivity than we initially assume. What does the behavior look like? Then we will say, well, what went on in that organism a half second before that behavior occurred to cause it to occur? Which is the world of what's going on with neurons, what's going on with circuitry.
Misspelled
There's
Sheenie's
the
ass.
explanation for the behavior.
I don't know what that
this
means.
behavior happened because this part of the brain got activated. But just as we're about to settle in happily into that bucket, we push back a bit and say, well, what smell, what sound, what sensory stimulation in the environment caused those neurons to get activated and produce that behavior? And then pushing one step further behind. Okay, well, what do hormone levels, various hormones in the bloodstream of that animal or individual for the past few hours, how do those hormones change how sensitive you are to those sounds, smells, etc., that cause those neurons to get activated and produce the behavior? And all we're going to be doing is working our way back all the way through early development,
I need to go check and see if I have
fetal
ice
life,
and
the
ice
genetic
maker now.
makeup of an individual, the genetic
still got
makeup
some
of
time.
entire population, species, the evolutionary pressure on, all the way back to there. How do you explain each one of these behaviors in the context of those outposts, and how are they not really outposts? All they are different ways of expressing the same biological influences. If you say, ooh, here's a hormone that explains this behavior is caused by hormone X. Hormone X is coded for by a gene. So suddenly you're not just talking about endocrinology, you're talking about genetics. And if there's a gene there, it has been subject to selection. So suddenly you're talking about evolution. If you were talking about what smells, sights, etc. are the acute triggers for a behavior, by definition, you're also talking about fetal development that determined how sensitive those systems were to those sorts of stimuli. What we're going to be having over and over again is any one of these buckets that we spend some time in. All we're going to do is think of that bucket is at that point the most convenient way of describing all of the influences that came beforehand. And in that regard, there's no buckets. All there are temporary platforms, and each platform is simply the easiest, most convenient way of describing the outcome of everything that came beforehand, starting with millennia back in evolution. Okay, so that sounds great. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, and we're going to be very sophisticated and fancy in our thinking about it, and we're not going to fall for categorical thinking and all of that. Okay, this is a complicated subject, and we're smart, so we're going to try to think about that smartly. That's great, but like maybe this is just an irritating song and dance here of, ooh, we're not going to fall for categorical thinking like people out there. Obviously, when people are thinking about stuff like behavior, and they do this professionally, professional biologists, biology, behavior type, yes, they understand also. This is just this straw man, ooh, we're going to be more sophisticated in our thinking than endocrinologists and geneticists and all of those. They obviously know that these things interact, and there's not just one explanation, and it's just the area they focus on. They understand that. Let me read you a few quotes to show just how much some of these folks don't understand that. First quote, "Give me a child at birth from any background and let me control the total environment in which he is raised, and I will turn him into anything I wish him to be, whether doctor, lawyer, beggar, or thief." This was John Watson, 1912, one of the founding fathers of the school of psychology called behaviorism. Behaviorism that sort of reached its apogee with this guy B.F. Skinner in the 1950s, this notion that if you could control the rewards, the punishments, the positive, the negative reinforcements, you could turn anybody into anything you want, whether doctor, lawyer, beggar, or thief. And we know that isn't the case. We know that's not possible. We know that all you have to do is throw in one other factor, like a lot of protein malnutrition during fetal life, and you're not going to be able to do that. That being a crude example of just how wrong this guy was. You cannot have all the control over the environment and turn somebody into whatever you want. Here's a guy living pathologically in this bucket that behavior could be explained solely by understanding reward and punishment. Interesting factoid, this John Watson guy, shortly after that, he was driven out of academia for a wild scandal that he was involved in, and he spent the rest of his career apparently as an extremely successful advertising executive. Going to show you something, he may not have been able to turn people into anything he wanted, but apparently he could make them buy all sorts of gewgaw nonsense. Okay, next quote. Normal psychic life depends upon the good functioning of brain synapses. If you don't know what synapses are, don't panic at this point. There are ways brain cells connect with each other. Okay, normal psychic life depends on the good functioning of brain synapses, and mental disorders appear as a result of synaptic derangements. Synaptic adjustments will then modify the corresponding ideas and force them into different channels. Using this approach, we obtain cures and improvements, but no failures. Synaptic adjustments. What do you suppose those little old synaptic adjustments are that this guy is referring to? Any guesses? Somebody shout it. Electroshock therapy. Electroshock therapy, you know, a little synaptic. You wish it were as gentle as electroshock therapy.
Oh.
This is even more dramatic synaptic
Lobotomy.
adjustments. Any other guesses? Yeah. Frontal lobotomies. You know, you want to adjust somebody's synapses, so you just like slice off the front third of their brain or so. This was Agos Moniz, a Portuguese neurologist who invented frontal lobotomies. It had a different name at the time, but was the person who started this, and something that was done to tens and hundreds of thousands of people who had absolutely nothing wrong with them. One of the darkest chapters of where psychiatry gets in bed with ideology, massive criminal destruction of people's brains. This is what he had to say about the procedure on his acceptance of his Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine for having invented it. So here we have somebody pathologically living in a world of understand how synapses are working, adjust them, and with that we obtain cures and improvements, but no failures. Final quote, worst one of all. The selection for social utility must be accomplished by some social institution if mankind is not to be ruined by domestication-induced degeneracy. The racial idea as the basis of our state has already accomplished much in this respect. We may and we must rely on the healthy instincts of the best of our people for the extermination of elements of the population loaded with dregs. Anybody want to guess who that was?
Hitler.
Hitler, Hitler, that behavioral biologist, he was a little bit busy at the time. This was instead one of Hitler's main scientific propagandists. This was somebody living pathologically in a box that doesn't even exist, having notion of race and ethnicity and genetics and all of that, saying, let me fix that one, let me exterminate the elements of the population loaded with dregs, and I'll fix up that little problem of fixing something that ain't broken. Who was this? This was a scientist named Konrad Lorenz. Konrad Lorenz, who probably a lot of us are familiar with. Konrad Lorenz was one of the founding fathers of ethology. We'll learn all about that. But he, like everybody knows him, winding up in all the little kid nature books. Konrad Lorenz discovered imprinting in birds, and he'd be going around. He was this little Austrian guy with this cherubic white beard, and he'd always have these little Austrian shorts and suspenders, and there would be a whole bunch of duckies following him because they thought he was mom, and he was totally charming and irresistible with this sort of old imprinting with his ducky kids. And he also happened to be a rabid Nazi propagandist who went to his grave saying that there was nothing wrong with what he did. These are not crappy fourth-rate scientists. These are not people working at, you know, the University of the Desert of Podunk or whatever. These are among the most influential scientists of the last century. These are people who influenced how people were educated, and when we decided it wasn't worth the effort of doing it, these are people whose influence led to the brains being destroyed of hundreds of thousands of people who had nothing wrong with them. These are the people who led to the notion that you fix up a problem that doesn't exist by exterminating 9 million people. These are not minor scientists. These are the most influential people of the last century coming out of science in many ways, living pathologically inside their own buckets and how they could explain the entire world. And thus, again, our goal is going to be to not fall for that, to think about human behaviors, and in some cases, to think about some of the most disturbed, some of the most frightening, damaged human behaviors, and resist the temptation to think inside a bucket and find the explanation. Again, every level we're going to talk about genes, hormones, neurons, environmental influence, whatever it is, that point will simply be the easiest way of describing all of the influences that came before. They're not even temporary buckets, there's no buckets. That will be our goal. Now, thinking about this and approaching human behavior, the biology of human social behavior, often the biology of abnormal human social behavior, we're going to have three intellectual challenges. The first one is recognizing circumstances where there is nothing fancy about us whatsoever. We are just like every other animal out there, and where the challenge is to accept that. Let me give you an example. You are a hamster. You are a female hamster. And you're sitting in your cage, and as a female hamster, what you do is you ovulate every 5 days or so, and you're going about your business and everything's great. Now, somebody puts another female hamster in the cage with you. And over the subsequent month or so, what happens is both of you will begin to lengthen your cycles and eventually synchronize them so that you are both ovulating the same afternoon on a regular basis. Amazing. This actually works this way. And menstrual ovulatory synchrony, people understand how this works in hamsters. It is done with olfaction, with pheromones, with chemical airborne signals from one female to another. And you can prove this by electrically recording from olfactory systems, or if you don't have much funding, you could take like a paper clip over the female hamster's nose, and she doesn't synchronize then. It's all done with olfaction. And what's most amazing is you put the two females together, and there's a way of disrupting it. Put a male hamster in there, and suddenly the cycles desynchronize and shorten, and you break it up with male pheromones. And what's even more remarkable is you put the two females together, and it's not random who synchronizes the other one. The dominant female synchronizes the subordinate one. Totally understood. People have been working on this for years, and it works this way in like goats and sheep and dogs and cats and pigs. Apparently, you could go to a 7-Eleven somewhere in Iowa and you could buy a can of pig ovulatory synchronization spray and take it home and just run wild. I have no idea why you would want to do that, but nonetheless, that's how you, like, it's up there with the cans of Cheese Whiz or whatever, and it's that well understood. And what's remarkable is it works exactly the same way in us humans, where it is known as the Wellesley effect. The fact that over the course of freshman year, this was first shown in Wellesley, 1970, over the course of freshman year, women, freshman year roommates tended to lengthen and synchronize their cycles. And it was done with olfaction. Women who had olfactory deficits didn't synchronize with their roommates. They would synchronize unless they were having close, intimate relationships with a male, in which case they desynchronized. And what's most cool of all is it's not random who synchronizes to who. The studies tend to show is the individual who is more socially outgoing, extroverted, dominating, is the one who synchronizes the other one. And this is well enough understood that when I went in college, people would sit around at the dinner table and say stuff like, oh, when we roomed together this summer, I had her synchronized by August 1st. You know, this is what happens if you hang out with biologists, but we're exactly the same. The challenge there is recognizing there's nothing fancy about us. At various points in the class, we will look at comparisons between the human and the chimp genome, and it's virtually the same. Some of the time, we are just a plain old off-the-rack animal. Second challenge is going to be circumstances where we appear to be just like everybody else, all the other organisms out there, but we do something very
I was
different
gonna stream
with the similarity. Let me give you an example.
I might do that.
You have two humans, two individuals.
I'll be right back. I might set up my Elden Ring stream.
They are sitting at a table. They're absolutely silent, they're making no eye contact, and they do nothing more physically taxing than every now and then one of them picks up their hand and moves a little piece of wood on the table. And if these happen to be the right two individuals in the middle of a chess grandmaster tournament, these people are maintaining blood pressure for 6 hours running that you only see in a marathon runner. These people are going through thousands of calories a day doing nothing more than thinking. And this is outrageous, because you look at one of these chess grandmasters who's just taken down an opponent and took their queen or whatever, and they will have the exact same physiology as some male baboon on the savannah who's just ripped the stomach open of his worst rival. And we're doing it there just with thought. And some of the time, what's remarkable about us is we have absolutely typical, boring physiology, but we use it in ways that no other animal could. We get stressed by the inevitability of our mortality. We get stressed by reading something awful that has happened to a child on the other side of the planet. We get stressed by somebody zooming past us in some sports car, and we decide that we are now economically inadequate. And you never even see the person's face. You just see the car. We get stressed reading about something awful happening to a character in a novel. This is a whole realm of things that we could do that nobody else does. And on the flip side, we can feel compassion and empathy for a loved one, but we can also do the same for someone on the other side of a planet in a refugee camp. We can feel compassion for a member of another species. We feel badly when our pets are injured. This is another realm where the physiology of the response, the empathy, the emotional bonding, all of that, it's the same boring physiology as every other animal out there, and we are using it in a way that is unrecognizable. Now, some of the time, the challenge is the third category, which is when we are doing something that no other animal out there has anything remotely similar to. Let me give you an example here, a shocking example. You have a couple. They live together. They come back at the end of the day from work. They talk, they eat dinner, they talk some more, they go to bed, they have sex, they talk some more, they fall asleep. The next day, they do the same exact thing. They come home from work, they talk, they eat, they talk, they go to bed, they have sex, they talk some more. They do this every single night for 30 days running. Hippos would be repulsed by this, because hardly anybody out there in the animal kingdom has non-reproductive sex, let alone day after day, and nobody else out there talks about it afterward. And what we've got here is a whole novel domain of human behavior, language use, aspects of our sexuality, this profoundly damaging human uniqueness of some individuals confusing aspects of sexuality with aggression. In some cases, we are going to be out there on our own trying to understand what's up. Okay, so that will be the general strategy for the course. We will resist categorical thinking over and over and over, not just because that's cool and nuanced and subtle and all of that, but fall into categorical thinking and you can do unspeakable damage in a realm of science that makes a difference. We will do so thinking constantly about ourselves as a boring species just like all the others out there, as a species that has the same boring physiology but uses it in ways that are unrecognizable, as a species that does some things that are simply without precedent out there, and constantly struggling with what does biology have to do with it. Okay, general structure of the course. The first half of the course is going to be an overview, an introduction to the various buckets, the various categories. And what we're going to go through is understanding sort of an introduction to evolutionary theory, an introduction to what molecular genetics has to do with behavior, behavioral genetics, ethology, the brain, endocrinology, each of these buckets, and you know what happens next, which is in the second half of the course, we will look at specific behaviors and in each case rip apart the buckets. And in each case do the strategy of what does the behavior look like? What happened a second before, the world of neurons, what happened with the sensory stimuli that trigger those neurons, etc., all the way back to the evolutionary selective pressures. So the first half of the course is going to be the introduction to the bucket. And I will tell you right off the bat, it is a total pain in the rear. Because what we're going to be doing is, like every 2.5 lectures, just when you are getting the vocabulary down, we're going to jump to a completely different bucket. It is going to be dizzying and unpleasant and all of that. And then second half of the course, oh, the rewards finally come, of then putting all the pieces together, looking at individual categories of behavior. Sexual behavior, aggressive behavior, parental behavior, schizophrenia, depression, personality disorders, language use. In each of these cases, what's going on a second before, what's going on 10 million years before, where do all these buckets disappear in the interactions? So that's going to be the strategy for the course. Something critical about how the course was designed is it's got no prerequisites, because I really think this is a subject that everybody on Earth should be forced to learn about at gunpoint, and thus, like, it's a good thing, I think, to have this not be one of those upper-level bio classes. Let me just get a sense of who's here. How many of you are bio types, bio majors? Hum bio, psychology, anthro. Are there any English lit grad students in here? Yeah, okay. Good for you. Thank you for coming here. See what you think in 3 months, but nonetheless, the class has been designed explicitly to have no background whatsoever. How are we going to do that? We're going to do the usual song and dance of weekly sections and reviews and all that sort of thing. But in addition, during this first half of the course, when we're jumping from category to category, we're going to have each week additional sections, a catch-up section, which is for people who have no background in that area, getting you through the basics and getting you up to speed so that you will be able to then know what's up during the lectures. So those will be posted. The first one of these is, let me make sure I've got this. Yes, it will be this Thursday at 7:30 in the room next door. And this is going to be the introduction to evolutionary theory and getting you ready for what will be the evolution lectures Wednesday and Friday of this week. If you don't have a strong background, go to these catch-up sections. The TAs who will be giving it are really expert in those areas, lots of background, and this will be your chance to catch up. Look through the handout. I think I have a bunch of terms there or something where if you're not terribly familiar with those terms in some discipline, that's a sign that you should probably go for some of the catch-up stuff. If you really are just doing this,
I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream, but
if you can
I should be back in just a couple minutes, and I'll change the name of it and everything.
As well.